All right, let's angle it a little different. Is slavery as bad as it used to be? Is slavery as bad as it used to be?
It's worse.
No, that's just not. There's no. Is you're saying?
Okay, today we're going to watch and go over a video between Papa Gut and Conscious Lee, who are two big TikTokers. As you know, I've been spending a lot of time on TikTok creating content over there, and I've seen both of these guys' content on TikTok, and it's led me to Papa Gut's YouTube channel, where they had a debate on whether or not you can be racist towards white people. Now, I've already watched it because it's rather long. So what I did was I timestamped it for myself, and we're going to jump around to certain areas that I wanted to give my own opinion on and discuss it further. I'm not going to watch the whole thing. That would just be way too long and a drag. So we are going to skip around, but let's get right into it.
Us for society, and I want to explain why. So first and foremost, I always do, like, this is a very basic thing. Well, actually, really, first and foremost, I don't think do we know how many hate crimes there are that are perpetuated against white people in the United States? I don't know. I would assume it's 0 to like very few. Maybe there's some, right? We would assume that there's substantially less hate crimes towards white people than black people. So just on a practical level, as a society, we're already acknowledging that for the most part, black people aren't going to be even racist towards white people. We're not seeing a pattern.
Okay, what I want to touch on here is this depends, right? Because some people, especially some people on the left, well, this is the funny dichotomy. So people on the right, right, people on the far right who are anti-Semites, they don't consider Jews white. And then you have people on the far left who are anti-Semitic. They do consider Jews white because they say it plays into the white supremacy and the patriarchy, and the Jews have all this control. So from the leftist far left perspective, Jews are white. So if you're going off that initiative, then you would say that the highest amount of hate crimes in America are perpetrated on white people. They're perpetrated on Jews. Jews are the #1 group for the most hate crimes perpetrated against in this country. Still are. So it just depends, right? If you're on the far right, they don't. If you're on, I shouldn't say far. If you are like an anti-Semitic far right nut job, they don't consider Jews white. If you are on the far left, a leftist nut job, and you're anti-Semitic, a lot of them do consider Jews white. So this one kind of depends. Let's move on.
And erase, you know what I'm
sure,
saying?
I understand the pretext, but to make it very simple, because I understand what you're doing. You're paralleling like Nazis to like white people in America.
Oh yeah, I think that white people in America got the Nazis beat. I want to say that again.
Well, okay, but the diff.
Let's stop it there. This is absolutely insane. So, white people in America today, presumably that's what he means, have the Nazis beat in terms of their bigotry, their racism, the injustices, the evil that they perpetrate on others. This is just pure goddamn delusion. There's really nothing else to say. Let's continue.
Of actual, like, you know, white supremacy in the United States. Like, I'd say for sure. There's no way. I think that there's no way you could deny that.
I think that doesn't resolve the historical trauma.
No, it does. No, it doesn't. But my point is that we're going. Here's what I would ask. So, what's the end game when it comes to race?
The end game when it comes to race, if you're asking for in terms of how race was set up, was to make sure the hierarchy of white over black is always sustained, and make sure that indigenous people and black people are accumulated and exterminated. That's what I think is the end goal of race.
Well, no, I mean, that's not what I mean like that. I mean, like, what's the end game of the, like, okay, so I would say the end game is to just completely abolish race. Like, that's the end game. Yeah, no, that's what I mean.
I think that I would go like 2 steps of like above that and say is to abolish the hierarchies of racism. Sure. I think that it's not that. I think that a lot of us be lost in the sauce of sameness, and we.
Okay, let's stop it there. Really, the only end game of race, the eventual end game, has to be that the color of one's skin matters as much as the color of one's hair. That has to be the end goal of race. It has to become completely irrelevant. And ask yourself this. If you are on the left or on the right, and you're far left or you're far right, and you are making race a pivotal point of your identity and a pivotal point of our society, how can it become less important? How can we get to the point where we don't care about your skin color, we care about who you are as an individual, if you're constantly making race more important? You're not going to reach that end game.
It's going to mean that down in the future, we're going to not only generate a mentality that like crimes from like white to black are not as serious, like in a long term, and then it's going to turn into the demonization of white people.
Power, though. Like, do you think that men can experience sexism?
No, but we're not. Yeah, men can experience sexism, sure.
But like, how does that look?
You know, how does like sexism work? You don't like just things along the lines. I mean, we have these higher suicide rates. You don't think that women can be sexist towards men? That's a very interesting question.
I think that men can internalize hyper patriarchy, or men can internalize sexism in a ways where they start to reify gender roles. But I don't think that men can experience. I don't think that women can be sexist towards men.
You don't think that a woman can be sexist?
So this is another one that's just pure delusion. It's insane. Consciously sees everything through the lens of power. That's it. It seems like every societal difference or hierarchy, everything, he sees it through the lens of power. That is an extremely dangerous way to view the world. Extremely. It's people like that you want nowhere near positions of power. Of course women can be sexist towards men. What? Of course they can. One area where you see it play out a lot of times is in the courts in terms of custody over children. A lot of times in divorces, a lot of times women tend to end up getting better terms than the men in a lot of those cases. So that would be sexism towards men. So it's just, again, pure delusion to think otherwise.
Be at the bottom of the
okay. Well, not to get. I don't want to get all complicated in this like whole argument of like, because what it sounds like you're saying is what it sounds like you're saying is like, hey, yeah, that's what's going to happen. Like, is that what the goal is?
I think that from a historical standpoint, I can point out in terms of human history where non-European civilizations had the willpower to be able to dominate and colonize other ways in which the Europeans have done, and they did not do that.
So your argument is it's just
okay. So this is just historically inaccurate, just completely inaccurate. There are many instances throughout the world where there were non-European nations that conquered other nations and they subjugated the people. Many. You could look all up and down Asia. All up and down Asia. It happened within Africa between other African tribes. It happened within the Americas between other Native American tribes. Has he ever heard of the Mongols and Genghis Khan? This is just the Ottoman Empire. Now, we can talk about reasons. There are quite a few reasons why the Ottoman Empire never made its way to the Americas. But we can't rest and say that, oh, they never made their way to the Americas simply because they weren't trying to colonize and subjugate people. No. Ottoman expansion to the empires, historians think that there's a few reasons why it didn't happen. So it lacked because the trade routes within the area where they were already an empire, in the Indian trade routes, were all very, very plentiful. And they felt as though they didn't need to go elsewhere to enrich their empire because the Indian trading routes were so close and they already had established trading routes there. Geography is another reason, right? So they had to go around the continent of Africa. They couldn't just go through the continent of Africa, and they couldn't make it around Africa. One of the reasons they couldn't is because Portugal found its way around Africa. Portugal in the times where the Ottoman Empire was at its height, they ran into a lot of naval trouble, a lot of naval warfare with the Portuguese, as the Portuguese went around Africa and found their way into the Indian Ocean. And this caused a lot of turmoil, a lot of fighting. So it was another way to block them from getting around. So you also had, they had a lot of competition very close to them that kept them from expanding further. So they had the Persians, they had Vlad the Impaler, which was a thorn in their side. So you can't just say that they didn't do it because they weren't worried, they didn't want to subjugate others, and they didn't want to colonize other nations because they inherently were good or something like that, and they didn't want to impose their way of life, even though they did that to just about everyone around them that they could, that were in distance of them to do so. This is just, it's completely false.
And then we've also now set the standard that white people can't be the target of racism. It's going to lead to inequality.
I can end this with 2 lines, fam. In your hypothetical, if you're saying that the demographics have shifted and we're equal, that means that racism is gone. So how does one reinscribe?
Right, but that's the point. But the point is that would racism be gone when we set societal standards that demonize white people?
I think that when you acknowledge that white people created the word racism, we have to ask ourselves, when white people created the word racism, did they intend for themselves to be victims of it? Hell no, they did not.
No, but okay, so it seems because it seems like your entire argument comes down to the fact that black people were never as violent as white people, right? And so once yeah, that's what you had.
My entire argument boils down to a systemic institutional operation.
Right.
Like literally.
Right.
If I can quote. What about it? If you want.
Oh man, this is another one that is just it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't hold up on their logic. So since white people, what he says, white people, Europeans, I presume, created the word race, other people can't fall victims of racism. You can't explain that to me, how that makes sense. It doesn't make any sense. One, just because what the Europeans decided to call as race, you don't think that, again, in parts of Asia, in parts of India, you don't think that they saw each other differently? Maybe they just didn't have the word race. They had other ways of explaining the differences they saw, and then they treated each other different based on the differences they saw. Of course they did. Just open a history book. It's blatantly obvious. Okay, just about the entire world, and going back as far in history as he wants to go back to, did not treat each other right. It's called tribalism, and we're still trying to dig out from the disgusting hole that is tribalism. They created tribes based on their geography, based on their culture, based on the way they looked, and they separated themselves from other tribes based on their culture, based on the way they looked, based on their geography, and they fought each other over those differences and for resources and a myriad of other reasons.
Why does it mean so much to make it where white people have to fit under the paradigm of being victimized by racism? Like,
first, for just pure equality moving forward in the future. Right now, it means absolutely nothing if you say that you can't be racist towards me, because I have all the power. But 100 years from now, once everything shifts, when you have a societal mind...
This is where I half agree with Papa, half disagree. It still matters on an individual level. Obviously, someone can be racist towards white people or a white person on an individual level. Obviously. If you hold preconceived notions about someone based on the color of their skin, you are prejudging them based on their race, which is racism. So you may not be able to inflict as much actual, power over that individual as, let's say, the system, systemically, what the disadvantages that black people in America feel based on the system. But you can still be individually racist towards anyone. Anyone of any color can be individually racist towards another individual. It's plain and simple. Systemically is different, but individual racism, obviously. Now, could there be a system that was racist towards white people? Of course. Could there be a system that was racist towards Asians? Of course. That's just not what's in America currently. But there were systems throughout time that were that, and there could be systems in other nations or in the future that are that. The other half of this where I agree with Papa is he's right. And if this is what the dichotomy you're trying to set up, then in the future, we're not going to reach that equality that we're striving for. If you're telling me that you can't be racist towards white individuals, we're not going to reach the equality that we're trying to reach, because that means you are able to then attack an individual because they're white, and then you're holding white people to a different standard. That is not the equality that we're trying to achieve.
But what if in 2 weeks everybody dies of extinction? It's like, fam, if extinction matters, we should focus on it right now. Your hypothetical goes away if we're able to fix it right now.
I think you're just being. I think that you're not.
World spill over into a non-racist world.
Because your idea doesn't create a non-racist world.
A racist world. I get that.
Simply put, your idea just doesn't create a non-racist world. That's the whole point I'm trying to make. Is by you're setting up a double standard. And it's not going to create a non-racist world.
So does reverse racism exist?
No, it's just racism. It's just racism under context.
Again, another one that's just 1,000% accurate by Papa Gut, and consciously is just completely delusional again. There's no such thing as reverse racism. It's just racism. It's just racism. That's all it is.
White people don't want to give a racism. Hey,
what do you? White people do want to get. Most white people are fine with giving up their power. That's a
damn lie. So how come ain't dividend?
So then why is slavery gone? Honestly, if white people were not. If white people not gone, bro. Slavery is not gone in America, you don't think that we?
No, hey, 13th Amendment says United States federal government shall prohibit slavery except.
All right, let's angle it a little different. Is slavery as bad as it used to be? Is slavery as bad as it used to be?
It's worse.
No, that's just not. There's no. Is you're saying?
There's nothing more you can do than just laugh. I feel Papa Gut's pain. It is a complete waste of time to have a discussion with someone like Consciously. The man doesn't even admit that slavery is gone. Of course it's gone. Now, if you want to make some comparison to, the state and inmates being kind of like slaves to the state, you can do that for sure. But, they committed crimes and they need to be in prison for those crimes, at least, violent crimes, I would say. So that's different. Saying that slavery in the context that they're discussing, which is like the ownership of people and trading and selling and buying them is not gone, is just pure delusional. We have to be able to call this what it is. It's false. It's delusional. It's just stupid. And then to say after that, when Papa Gut said, do you think it's gotten any better? He says, no. Holy Christ. I hope I don't have to explain how it's gotten better. Oh, man. Let's just move on.
Sure.
That's what we know. Bourgeoisie goes into poverty. Mm-hmm. They're no longer seen as the bourgeoisie. You see how the label changed based on your position?
So are you saying that once white people are okay? So if I okay, great point. So what you're saying is that once white people hold on. You're talking about poverty, right? Like money is like generally unracist. We have a poor distribution of it that has a negative impact on black people. But what?
Money inherently racist.
No, it's not. That's emphatic. That's just an accuracy. What I'm saying.
Again, this is another one that's just, oh man, how did Papa Gut sit through this? This man just said money is inherently racist. Money is inherently racist. It's just an object. It's just and really, if we're just discussing, money, like something that is traded for goods and services, that can be a number of things. So, is silver inherently racist? Gold is inherently racist. The American dollar is inherently racist, but the Canadian dollar isn't. Money is inherently racist, as Ben tells us. Again, we have to be able to call this what this is. It's just pure delusion and false.
Analogy. Are you prepared?
Hopefully it's a decent analogy, and then I'm prepared.
This analogy has to do with power and how power is constructed and how history works.
Now,
Are you ready?
I'm ready for your analogy. Let's get through the analogy again. Yeah, sure.
Listen, Ike and Tina Turner was in a domestic violent relationship. Ike was beating Tina's ass 15 years. What you're saying is that in year 16, if Tina decides to whoop Ike or defend herself, you're ethically saying that Tina is an abuser.
Nope, that's not at all what I'm saying. You're proposing an individual. There's specific. This is what I'm saying is that you, as a black person, can still be racist towards a white person who's done nothing to you. You're generalizing.
This is where we get to the meat of why Consciously's thought process is so wrong. He places collective blame, and it's very dangerous, this collective blame that he places. So in the analogy he just draws is an individual instance where obviously Ike is the aggressor and attacking Tina. So Tina has every right then to defend herself and get out of that situation. Ike is the actual aggressor. It's an individual instance where she has every right to do what she has to do to defend herself and get out of that scenario. Collectively, though, what he's saying is that because there was slavery in the past and, Jim Crow and certain people in the past and even today don't act right and hold racist ideas or perpetuate individual acts of racism, that gives then black people today the right to turn around and fight back versus other white people who are not themselves actually culpable in the harm or the racism that he is saying exists. That is extremely dangerous. This is just an extremely dangerous way to view the world. It's collective blame. You would be blaming people who are completely innocent or guilty, or innocent, of certain crimes, certain immorality, and you're blaming them, and then you want to punish them even though they actually didn't commit any of it. That is extremely dangerous. And it's not going to get us to where we want to go.
No, I can't exist in an anecdotal space where I go, oh, Hispanic people. I just can't exist. Like I can't sit down. Hold on, I can't sit down at the lunch table. Hold on, let me just get my point out. I can't sit down in the lunch table and hear I can't sit down at the lunch. That's not what I'm saying, though. I can't sit down at a lunch table and go, okay, every single Hispanic person is being outwardly and aggressively racist towards black people, while white people just simply aren't doing it. That's what we're talking about.
Comparative analysis to say, therefore, in my area, Hispanic people are the most racist. That's what I'm saying specifically.
That's from my experience, from my anecdotal experience. Yeah.
You can say those people over there are racist. Mm-hmm. You cannot make the comparative analysis and say that those people over there are more racist than those people over there because you don't experience racism. Me as a cisgender person, I cannot say.
So So basically, I simply just can't. I can't say
they the most transphobic. How can I say?
This is insane. This is identity politics, and you're basing someone's argument based on their identity. That's not how argumentation works. A good argument should hold up under scrutiny regardless of who makes that argument. If you're not part of a group, you can still observe a group and then hopefully come to a logical conclusion off the observations you make and then present your argument to others. You then can't, on the other side, invalidate that person's argument simply because their skin color is different. That is racism. It's also, again, not logical. a good argument holds up regardless of your identity. That's what it means to have logical discussions. Logic doesn't care about whether you're Asian or black or Latino or American or French. It doesn't care. Logic works across borders and cultures. This is not hard to understand. Now, that doesn't mean that your identity is never relevant. It can be relevant. I'll use Sam Harris's example because it's very good. So, if you're Catholic and someone you're speaking to makes a claim that Catholics don't believe in hell, now you may be in a position to refute that claim because you're Catholic, and you can actually then retort and say, actually, my cousin is Catholic and he believes in hell. So it's not that your identity is never relevant, but it can't be the sole purpose as to why your argument is logically sound and holds up under scrutiny. It just, your argument does or doesn't, regardless of how you look. That's how logic works. You can, watch the video. It's like another hour and a half long. I didn't actually watch the rest of it. I just watched this, and then they took like an intermission, and then they came back. I don't know how Papa Gut sat through this. There was a time there in between where you didn't see where it got pretty, they got boisterous and started getting louder, and you can see that they were both kind of losing patience with each other. I could definitely see why Papa Gut lost his patience. Many of the things that Consciously was saying were just on their face false and, like I said, delusional. This was an interesting conversation, though, for sure. It definitely was entertaining as well. So again, if you want to take a look and you want to watch it, I will link to it in the description below. Thanks for watching.